I stood in the kitchen, staring at the half-eaten bowls of cereal on the table, my kids laughing at some cartoon playing on the TV in the background. Olivia had been gone for a week now, off to a business conference across the country, just another trip like so many before. We were used to it. That was part of our life, her career. But this time felt different. "Hey, guys," I called out, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "What if we surprised Mom?" Both of them looked up at me, wide-eyed. Emma, my youngest, practically jumped out of her chair. Surprised her how? I leaned against the counter, the idea forming as I spoke. What if we flew to see her? Just showed up at her hotel? Took her out for dinner? She's been working so much. Bet she'd love it. While you're here, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to know. Emma squealed. Yes, let's do it. Ethan, my oldest, was more cautious. He tilted his head, thoughtful. Mom didn't say anything about visiting. Wouldn't she have invited us? The question sat there for a second, the weight of it heavier than I wanted to admit. Olivia had been distracted lately, distant. We texted, but our conversations felt off, shorter, more forced. She hadn't called goodnight like she usually did, and yesterday, when I had tried to FaceTime her, it had rung twice before sending me straight to voicemail. I shrugged, pushing the thought aside. She's probably just busy. This'll be a nice surprise. Ethan didn't look convinced, but Emma was already racing upstairs, yelling about packing her stuffed bunny and her favorite pajamas. I grabbed my phone, pulling up flights. There was a direct one leaving that afternoon. A little last minute, but nothing I couldn't arrange. I could already picture it. Olivia's shocked face, the kids running into her arms, dinner at some fancy restaurant. A perfect family moment, the kind we hadn't had in a while. I shook the thought away and booked the tickets. All right, I said, smiling. Let's go surprise Mom. We rushed through the house, packing bags as fast as we could. Emma stuffed half her stuffed animals into her tiny suitcase, while Ethan meticulously folded his clothes like he was preparing for a month-long expedition. I threw in the essentials, clothes, chargers, a couple of snacks, and checked the flight details. It was tight, but if we moved fast, we'd make it. The drive to the airport was filled with chatter. Emma bounced in her booster seat, her legs kicking excitedly. "Do you think Mom's gonna be so surprised?" I glanced at her in the rearview mirror, smiling. "I think she's gonna love it." Ethan was quieter. He stared out the window, arms crossed. What if she's busy? What if she has meetings? I kept my voice light. Then we'll wait for her. We'll have a nice little vacation in Ellen. He nodded, but didn't look convinced. I didn't blame him. Olivia had been harder to pin down lately, always occupied, always somewhere else, even when she was home. But I pushed the thought aside. She had no idea we were coming. That was what made it exciting. At the airport, the usual chaos unfolded. Long lines, security checks, Emma complaining about taking off her shoes, Ethan double-checking his boarding pass like he was the pilot. I soaked it all in, the hum of conversation, the distant announcements crackling over the speakers. As we waited at the gate, I pulled out my phone and sent Olivia a quick text. "Hey, just thinking about you. Hope your trip's going well. Love you." No response. I frowned, checking the time. She was usually quick to reply, even during meetings. Maybe she was sleeping? Boarding Group B, now boarding, the attendant called. I shook off the doubt, grabbing our bags. Let's go. The flight was smooth, but I couldn't shake a strange feeling in my chest. Emma was passed out, her head resting on my arm, while Ethan had his headphones in, watching a movie. I stared out the window, my thoughts wandering. Something about this trip didn't feel right. I had told myself this was a spontaneous idea, but was it really? Or had I been looking for an excuse to check on Olivia? The late replies, the lack of calls, the weird distance, it had been nagging at me. This trip was supposed to be a happy surprise, a chance to bring us all together. But what if I wasn't the only one keeping secrets? The plane touched down with a slight jolt, the captain's voice crackling overhead. "Welcome to Los Angeles. Local time is 4:45 p.m., and it's a warm 78 degrees. Emma stretched, yawning. "Are we there?" I smiled, ruffling her hair. "We're here, kiddo." As we grabbed our bags and made our way through the crowded terminal, I glanced at my phone again. Still no response from Olivia. My stomach tightened. Something was wrong. I just didn't know what yet. We stepped into the terminal, the sounds of rolling suitcases, distant intercom announcements, and casual conversation filling the air. Emma held my hand tightly, looking around at the towering windows and the bustling crowd. "Where's Mom?" she asked, scanning every passing face as if Olivia would magically appear. I forced a smile. "She doesn't know we're here, remember? We're surprising her." Ethan walked slightly ahead, rolling his suitcase behind him, his face unreadable. He wasn't as easily distracted as Emma. He felt something was off, just like I did. I pulled out my phone again, checking for a reply. Still nothing. I stared at the message I'd sent hours ago. Olivia had always been glued to her phone, always quick with a reply, even if it was just a short busy, talk later. But this time, silence. Maybe she was really in meetings. Maybe she'd left her phone on silent. Maybe I was overthinking this. Or maybe she was ignoring me on purpose. "All right, guys," I said, clearing my throat. "Let's grab a cab to Mom's hotel." The drive through LA was long, traffic stretching endlessly under the golden evening light. Emma hummed a song to herself, pressing her forehead against the window, watching the palm trees blur past. Ethan, however, sat stiffly, gripping his phone but not looking at it. I could tell his mind was racing just like mine. By the time we arrived at the hotel, the sun was dipping behind the skyline, bathing everything in warm hues of orange and pink. I paid the driver and stepped out, glancing up at the towering glass building. Olivia had mentioned staying here briefly, but I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Now, as I stared at the polished entrance, the expensive cars lined up outside, something in my gut twisted. We stepped inside, greeted by the cool air and the faint scent of fresh flowers and luxury. The lobby was pristine, the kind of place where people spoke in hushed tones, where the wealthy came and went unnoticed. I approached the reception desk, my voice steady. "Hi, I'm looking for Olivia Sullivan. She's a guest here." The receptionist, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes, offered me a professional smile. "Of course. May I ask your relation to the guest?" "Her husband." Something shifted in her expression. It was subtle, a flicker of hesitation before she typed into the system. My heart pounded as I watched her scan the screen. After a pause, she looked up, her voice just a little too careful. "Mrs. Sullivan is indeed a guest here." Relief surged through me for a split second. "See? Nothing to worry about." Then she continued. "She checked in with a +1. My breath stalled. I blinked. "A +1? The receptionist nodded, her expression unreadable. "Yes, a Mr. Parker. Brent Parker." The name hit me like a slap to the face. Brent Parker. Her coworker. My fingers curled against the counter, the polished wood suddenly feeling too smooth beneath my touch. I forced a casual chuckle, though my throat felt tight. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "Yes, sir. They booked a double suite under both names." A double suite, not separate rooms. My stomach dropped. "Would you like me to ring her room?" The receptionist asked, still polite, still professional. I swallowed the thick lump in my throat, my mind racing through every scenario, trying to find one that made sense. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she had used Brent's name for a work reservation. Maybe, no. I clenched my jaw, forcing a tight smile. "No need. I'll surprise her myself." The receptionist nodded, returning to her work as if she hadn't just cracked the foundation of my marriage in a single sentence. I turned to Ethan and Emma, schooling my expression. "Mom's room is upstairs. Let's go surprise her." Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't say anything. Emma, oblivious to the tension, grabbed my hand excitedly. Yay. We stepped into the elevator, the doors sliding shut behind us. My heart was pounding, my mind screaming at me to think. Brent Parker. Had it always been him? Had I been blind to something right in front of me this entire time? I reached for my phone, pulling up Olivia's messages. I scrolled, looking for something, anything I had missed. There he was, mentioned casually in conversations. "Long day at work. Brent and I are stuck on this project until midnight. Brent gave me a ride home. My car is acting up again. Brent just introduced me to this amazing sushi place. You'd love it. I had never thought twice about it. Just a coworker. Just someone she saw at the office. I stared at the screen, my grip tightening. The elevator chimed. Her floor. This was it. I stepped out, walking toward her room, every footstep feeling heavier than the last. Was I ready for this? Did I even want the truth? No, but I was about to get it anyway. The hallway stretched in front of me, lined with identical doors, each one concealing a different story. But I only cared about one. Room 1912? Olivia's room. The room she had checked into with Brent Parker. The room where my marriage was about to shatter. Emma held my hand, skipping slightly, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. Ethan was silent, walking a few steps behind, his gaze flickering between me and the door ahead. He knew something was wrong. He could feel it. I stopped in front of the door, my pulse pounding so hard I could hear it. My hand hovered over the handle, hesitation gripping me like a vice. Do I really want to see this? Yes. I knocked again, harder. Footsteps. The sound of movement inside. A muffled voice. Then silence. The door creaked open an inch, and Olivia's face appeared. Her expression going from mild annoyance to pure horror in a fraction of a second. Mark? I let the moment hang between us, my voice coming out calm and even, despite the rage boiling underneath. Surprise. Her grip on the door tightened. She blinked rapidly, struggling to process what was happening. What are you doing here? I forced a smile. The kids missed you. Thought we'd surprise you. Her eyes darted past me, landing on Ethan and Emma. Her face paled, panic flickering behind her carefully built mask. You shouldn't have come. I felt Ethan stiffen beside me. He had caught that too. I tilted my head, glancing past her shoulder. You gonna let us in? Her hesitation told me everything I needed to know. Before she could answer, the sound of movement came from behind her. A rustling. The distinct shuffle of someone trying not to be heard. And just like that, the last piece of doubt disappeared. Who's inside? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Olivia's lips parted, her body going rigid, scrambling for an answer. Lies were forming in real time, right in front of me. Then, before she could stop me, I pushed the door open. The room was dimly lit, the curtains half drawn, the expensive hotel sheets rumpled. And standing there, shirtless, hair disheveled, a look of absolute terror on his face. Brent Parker. For a moment, time stood still. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Emma's small voice broke the silence. Daddy, who's that? I swallowed, my chest tight, my fingers curling into fists at my sides. I could barely hear her over the sound of my own blood roaring in my ears. Brent opened his mouth, scrambling for some pathetic excuse. Mark, listen. Shut up, I said. My voice was lethal, quiet, controlled. The kind of calm that came before an explosion. Olivia panicked, stepping in front of me, blocking my path. Mark, please, let's talk about this. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Talk? Oh, now you want to talk? I shook my head. That's funny. Because last time I checked, you weren't answering my calls. She winced, guilt flashing in her eyes before she quickly masked it. I was going to tell you. I stepped forward, my voice low, cold, final. Were you? She hesitated, and that half-second delay told me everything. No, she wasn't. If I hadn't come here, if I hadn't forced the truth into the light, she would have kept lying. Ethan's voice cut through the thick tension. Mom? He was staring at her, at Brent, at the mess she had created. His face was pale, his hands clenched at his sides. Olivia turned to him, her voice desperate. Ethan, sweetheart, this isn't. Don't, I snapped. Don't lie to them. She flinched, her mask cracking, the weight of her choices finally sinking in. Brent took a slow step back, clearly looking for an exit. Look, Mark, man, this isn't. I turned to him, my voice cutting like glass. I said shut up. He went silent. Olivia's breathing was shaky, her perfect world crumbling in front of her eyes. Mark, please. We can fix this. We need to talk alone. I let out a bitter laugh. You had your chance. You made your choice. And now? I stepped past her, grabbing Ethan and Emma's hands. Now, we're leaving. Emma clung to me, confused, her little mind not fully grasping what had just happened. Ethan, though, he understood. His face was hard, his eyes cold, the way only a child forced to grow up too soon could be. Olivia reached for me, her voice breaking. Mark, please. I turned back to her one last time, really looked at her. The woman I had built a life with, the mother of my children, the person I had trusted most in the world. And now? She was just a stranger standing in an expensive hotel room with a man who wasn't her husband. I exhaled, my jaw tightening. You're dead to me. Then, without another word, I walked out, leaving her alone in the wreckage of what she had done. I walked down the hotel hallway with Ethan and Emma by my side, my grip firm but gentle. Emma was confused, looking up at me with wide eyes, but Ethan, he understood. He didn't ask questions. He didn't say a word. He just walked, his face tight, his fists clenched. Behind me, I could hear Olivia scrambling, her hurried footsteps following after us. Mark, wait. I kept walking. Mark, please. Her voice cracked, desperate now. Just listen to me. I stopped. Slowly, I turned around, keeping my expression blank. You have 30 seconds. She froze, her breath unsteady. She looked at Ethan and Emma, her eyes pleading. Can we talk alone? I scoffed. Not happening. Her lip trembled. It's not what you think. Ethan let out a sharp breath, shaking his head. Mom, don't. Her face crumbled. I crossed my arms. Go on, Olivia. Explain how your business trip ended up in a hotel room with Brent Parker. She swallowed, tears forming, her voice shaky. It wasn't planned. It just happened. I laughed, a hollow sound. Oh, it just happened? That's what you're going with? Her eyes darted toward Ethan and Emma, panic setting in. Please, Mark. Let's not do this here. Let's talk. Just you and me. I can explain everything. I shook my head. I don't need an explanation. I saw enough. Brent appeared in the hallway then, his shirt back on, looking like he wanted to disappear. Olivia shot him a panicked glare, but he just held up his hands. I didn't know she was married, man. I turned to him, my voice cold. Then you're just as dumb as you look. Brent took the insult, stepping back as if hoping to fade into the background. Olivia reached for my arm. Please, Mark, don't do this. We can fix this. I stepped back, out of her reach. There's nothing to fix. Her eyes filled with tears. You can't just walk away. I glanced at Ethan, at Emma, our children, standing there, witnessing their mother beg for forgiveness she didn't deserve. My heart ached for them, not for her. I exhaled, steadying myself. Watch me. Then, with my kids beside me, I turned and walked away, for good. The city lights blurred past as I drove, my grip on the steering wheel tight but steady. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on me, but I forced myself to push it aside. This wasn't about me right now. It was about them. Emma swung her legs in the back seat, completely unaware of what had just shattered around her. She was humming to herself, her stuffed bunny clutched tightly in her hands. Ethan, on the other hand, sat stiffly, staring out the window, his face unreadable. He hadn't said a word since we left the hotel. I glanced at him through the rearview mirror. You okay, bud? His jaw tightened. Are we going home now? I hesitated. Not yet. Thought we could get some ice cream first. Emma gasped. Really? I forced a smile. Yeah, why not? I needed time to think. I needed time to breathe. And more than anything, I needed to keep this moment from defining their childhood. The small ice cream shop was warm and inviting, filled with the comforting scent of fresh waffle cones and melting chocolate. Emma pressed her face against the glass, her excitement returning instantly. I want the one with the rainbow sprinkles. The teenage cashier grinned. Coming right up. Ethan, however, didn't move. He didn't even look at the ice cream. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, his shoulders tense. I crouched beside him. What's wrong, buddy? His lips pressed together. Mom's not coming, is she? The question hit me hard, but I didn't let it show. I exhaled slowly, keeping my voice calm. Not tonight. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. She was with someone else. I nodded, my chest tightening. Yeah. He finally looked at me then, his young face full of emotions he was too young to carry. Does this mean we're not a family anymore? My stomach twisted. How do you answer that? I put a hand on his shoulder. We're always a family. That doesn't change. But Mom made a mistake, I said carefully. A big one. And sometimes, when someone hurts us like that, we have to step away. But that doesn't mean you're losing me. Or Emma. Or our life. His eyes watered, but he blinked quickly, holding it in. Are you gonna divorce her? I hesitated for just a second. Then, with quiet certainty, I said, yeah, I am. Ethan took a shaky breath, nodding. He looked away, pretending to focus on the menu, but I saw it. The exact moment he accepted the truth. Emma ran back, holding up her ice cream cone proudly. Daddy, look. I forced a smile, ruffling her hair. Looks delicious, kiddo. She grinned, licking the ice cream happily. For her, this was just another night. For Ethan and me, it was the beginning of something entirely new. After the ice cream shop, I drove in silence, my thoughts running ahead of me, planning the next move. I couldn't stay here. Not in this city, not in this hotel, not anywhere Olivia could find me and try to spin her way back into our lives. We had to leave. Emma, blissfully unaware, yawned in the back seat, her sticky fingers wrapped around the last of her cone. Daddy, I'm sleepy. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror and softened. We'll be home soon, sweetheart. Ethan, however, wasn't fooled. He sat still, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. We're not staying here, are we? I met his gaze in the mirror. No, we're catching a flight home first thing in the morning. He didn't ask why. He just nodded, like he had already figured it out. Back at the hotel, I packed in record time, throwing clothes into bags, shoving toothbrushes into side pockets, folding just enough to make sure we weren't a complete mess when we landed back home. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, watching me. Mom's gonna try to talk to you again. I zipped up the suitcase. I know. He hesitated. Are you gonna listen? I stopped, exhaling slowly. No. He nodded, as if that was the answer he expected. Good. I studied him for a moment, the way he was handling all of this so quietly, so maturely. Too maturely. He was too young to be carrying this kind of weight. You don't have to be strong all the time, buddy, I said gently. His jaw clenched. I know. But he didn't let the emotion slip through. Not yet. Maybe not for a while. I didn't push him. I just patted his shoulder. We're gonna be okay. I booked the flights on my phone. First thing in the morning. The sooner we got out of here, the better. I had just confirmed the tickets when my phone vibrated. Olivia. I let it ring. She called again. And again. Then the text started. Mark, please talk to me. Don't do this. At least let me explain. I stared at the screen, my grip tightening. There was nothing she could say that would change the truth. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, glancing at me. She's not gonna stop. I clenched my jaw. No, she's not. There was a knock at the door. I already knew who it was. Ethan stiffened. Do you want me to take Emma to the bathroom? I met his gaze, something heavy passing between us. My 12-year-old son was trying to shield his little sister from seeing her mother like this. I nodded. Yeah, but that's a good idea. Without another word, he picked up Emma, who was already half asleep, and carried her to the bathroom, closing the door softly behind them. The knock came again, more urgent this time. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Olivia stood there, her face a wreck, mascara smudged, her hair a mess, her eyes red from crying. Mark, she whispered. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. What do you want? Her breath hitched. You know what I want. I shook my head. Too late for that. She stepped forward, but I didn't move. She hesitated. Mark, please. I messed up. I know I did. But you can't just walk away like this. I laughed under my breath. That's exactly what I'm doing. She reached for my arm, her voice breaking. We have a family. I pulled away, my eyes cold. You should have thought about that before you walked into a hotel room with another man. Tears spilled over her cheeks. I was confused. I was lonely. You're always working, always traveling, and don't. I snapped, my voice sharp. Do not blame me for your choices. I was faithful. I was committed. And you? You threw it all away. She sobbed, pressing a hand to her mouth. I didn't mean to, you did, I said firmly. You made a decision, Olivia, over and over again. And now, you have to live with it. Her shoulders shook. I'll fix this. I swear, Mark, just give me a chance. I stared at her, feeling nothing. No sympathy. No regret. No love. I had already left her in my heart. You don't get a second chance, I said quietly. Her face crumpled. You can't just leave like this. I met her eyes, steady and unwavering. Watch me. Then I closed the door. Inside, Ethan and Emma peeked out from the bathroom. Emma was rubbing her eyes sleepily. Was that Mommy? I bent down and kissed her forehead. Yeah, sweetheart. She just wanted to say goodbye. She yawned. Okay. Then she crawled into bed, curling up with her stuffed bunny. Ethan met my gaze, understanding what I had really meant. We're really leaving? He asked. I nodded. First flight home. He exhaled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Good. I ruffled his hair. Get some rest, bud. As he climbed into bed, I sat by the window, staring out at the city lights. Olivia had made her choice, and I had made mine. Tomorrow, we were going home, and we were never looking back. I barely slept. I lay awake in the dim hotel room, listening to Emma's soft breathing, Ethan shifting occasionally in his bed, the hum of the air conditioner filling the silence. My mind replayed everything. Olivia's excuses, Brent's pathetic face, the look in Ethan's eyes when he realized our family would never be the same. Morning came too quickly. The sky outside was a dull gray, the city still waking up. I moved quietly, packing the last of our things, careful not to wake Emma. Our flight was in a few hours, and I wasn't wasting another second in this city. Ethan sat up, rubbing his eyes. We leaving now? I nodded. Yeah, bud. Time to go. He stretched, then stood, his movements sluggish but certain. He was ready. He had already processed more than a kid his age should ever have to. I glanced at Emma, still curled up, her stuffed bunny tucked under her chin. I hated that she didn't know, that she wouldn't understand why everything was changing until it was too late. But I'd protect her from this as long as I could. I checked my phone. No new messages from Olivia. Maybe she had finally given up. Maybe she had accepted that I was done. Or maybe she was waiting for the right moment. By the time we got to the airport, the morning rush had started. The terminal was alive with travelers, voices blending into a steady hum of movement. Emma clung to my hand, still sleepy, while Ethan rolled his suitcase beside me, his face set in quiet determination. We checked in, made it through security, and found seats near our gate. Just a little longer, and we'd be gone. Then I heard her voice. Mark. I closed my eyes briefly, forcing myself to stay calm before turning around. There she was, Olivia, slightly disheveled, out of breath, her eyes wide with desperation. Ethan tensed beside me. Emma, oblivious, lit up. Mommy. Before I could stop her, she let go of my hand and ran straight into Olivia's arms. Olivia hugged her tightly, pressing kisses to her hair. Oh, baby, I missed you so much, she whispered. I stood still, arms crossed, my jaw clenched. How did you know we were here? She looked up at me, her voice pleading. I know you, Mark. I knew you'd run. I had to see you before you left. You had to? I scoffed. Olivia, we're past that. She set Emma down gently, then took a hesitant step toward me. Please, just give me 5 minutes. Alone. I exhaled, pinching the bridge of my nose. This was the last time. The last time she'd ever have the chance to try to manipulate me. I turned to Ethan. Watch your sister. He nodded, his expression unreadable, but I saw it. The quiet fury, the same distrust that burned in me. I stepped a few feet away with Olivia, keeping my voice low. Say what you need to say. She wrung her hands together, eyes shining with unshed tears. Mark, don't do this. We can fix this. We can go home and figure it out. I let out a humorless laugh. Fix what? The fact that you lied? The fact that you betrayed me? The fact that I had to find out who you really are in a damn hotel room? Tears spilled over. I made a mistake. I shook my head. You made a choice. Over and over again. This wasn't an accident, Olivia. This was who you are. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I still love you, she whispered. I met her gaze, my voice steady. I don't. She gasped softly, like the words had physically hit her. You don't mean that. I do, I said firmly. I did love you. But that woman, the one I married, the one I built a life with, she doesn't exist anymore. Her breathing grew shaky. Mark, I don't trust you. I don't respect you. And I damn sure don't love you. Her face crumpled. What about the kids? They need their family. I clenched my jaw. They still have their family. Me. I will be there for them every second, every day. But you? That's on you, Olivia. You chose this. She wiped at her tears furiously. So that's it? You're just leaving? I glanced back at Ethan and Emma. Emma was still happily distracted, kicking her legs as she waited. But Ethan was watching everything, taking in every word. I turned back to Olivia. Yeah, I am. Her shoulders shook as she let out a small, broken sob. But I felt nothing. No pity. No regret. Just relief. I started to walk away. Her voice wavered behind me. Mark, please. I don't want to lose you. I didn't stop. You already did. And then, without looking back, I took my kids, boarded the plane, and left her behind for good. The plane ride home was quiet. Emma slept against my arm, her small body rising and falling with each peaceful breath. Ethan stared out the window, his face blank, but I knew his mind was racing just like mine. I had imagined so many endings to this trip. Olivia running into my arms at the hotel, shocked but happy, the kids laughing as we surprised her. A perfect reunion, a memory we'd talk about for years. Instead, I was flying home with two kids who would never see their mother the same way again. And for the first time, I wasn't trying to fix it. I wasn't searching for a way to make it okay. Because it wasn't okay. It never would be. I stared out the window at the endless sky. Olivia was gone from my life. But what came next? What did I even have left? I glanced at Ethan, his reflection staring back at me in the glass. He caught me looking and finally spoke. She's gonna call again, isn't she? I sighed. Yeah, she will. He was quiet for a moment. What are you gonna say? I thought about it. About the words Olivia would try to spin, the guilt she'd try to place on me, the way she'd beg for forgiveness when all she really wanted was to undo getting caught. Nothing, I said. She's got nothing left to say that I need to hear. Ethan nodded. Good. That was all he said. But in that one word, I knew. He understood. He had already accepted the truth. We landed late in the afternoon. The air smelled different, like home. But it wasn't the same. Nothing was. The house was exactly how we had left it. Shoes by the door. A forgotten cereal bowl in the sink. Emma's toys scattered across the living room rug. But it felt empty. Emma ran inside, instantly comfortable, like she had just come back from a fun trip with Dad. Can I watch cartoons? She called, already digging for the remote. I swallowed hard, forcing normalcy. Go for it, kiddo. Ethan, however, stood in the doorway, taking it all in. He had always been more observant, more aware. He felt the shift in the air, the missing presence that should have been here. After a long moment, he turned to me. It's weird, huh? I met his gaze, the weight of the past few days sitting between us. Yeah, it is. He nodded, then set his bag down by the stairs. I'm gonna go to my room. I watched him go, my chest tightening. Too much had changed. I walked into the kitchen, rubbing a hand down my face. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I already knew who it was before I even looked. Olivia. I let it ring. Then another text. Mark, please. I just need to talk to you. I deleted the message and blocked her number. Then I stood there, staring at the quiet house, my reflection in the dark kitchen window. I had walked away. Now, I had to figure out how to rebuild. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of starting over. The first morning back home felt off. The house was still the same furniture, the same half-finished puzzle on the coffee table, the same cereal boxes in the pantry. But the air was different, heavier. I made breakfast like usual. Eggs, toast, a little too much butter because that's how Emma liked it. She sat at the table, swinging her legs, munching happily. Ethan, however, barely touched his plate. He picked at his food, eyes distant, lost in thought. I knew the moment was coming. It wasn't a question of if, just when. And then, it happened. Emma looked up at me, her big, innocent eyes filled with blind trust, and asked the question I had been dreading. When's Mommy coming home? The toast in my hand froze midair. The room seemed to shrink. Ethan went rigid, his